Last Sunday, the front page exclusive in the Observer newspaper featured an organisation called the Economic League, which specialises in advising companies on the background of potential employees. The following day, this book was published, which went into more detail about the subject of its title, Blacklist. All through the week, the Guardian newspaper has continued to draw attention to blacklists and blacklisting. With me are people all of whom have much to say about this and what it may say about the way we work together. Let me introduce you to them, but may I begin by thanking you all for joining us at such very short notice. Michael Noar is the Director General of the Economic League, an organisation whose motto is understanding, not strife, but which was described by the Observer last week as having drawn up a notorious blacklist of alleged subversives. Richard Norton-Taylor works for the Guardian newspaper and is co-author of Blacklist, the Inside Story of Political Vetting, published this week. One of the organisations to come under his scrutiny is the Economic League. Hilary Wainwright is a writer and freelance journalist and a regular contributor to the New Statesman and Society. In the 1970s, she wrote a book, The Lucas Plan, a new trade unionism in the making. George Brumwell is an executive member of the Union of Construction, Allied Trades and Technicians. This month he learned something which had been kept from him for 25 years. John Macreadie is the Deputy General Secretary of the Civil and Public Services Association, the largest civil service union and one of the few unions whose full-time officials are directly elected by their members. He also supports Militant, condemned by the Labour Party as anti-democratic. Hugo Cornwall wrote The Hacker's Handbook, a best-selling guide to how to break into computer databases. He's now a computer security specialist who advises companies on protecting their databases. Harold Musgrove was chief executive of the Austin Rover Group until 2 years ago. He now works as a consultant to the engineering industry. He's also president of Aston Villa Football Club, which drew with Liverpool today 1-1, which I suppose is close to a victory. George Brumwell, if I can turn to you first, what was it that you learned that you hadn't known for 25 years?
Well, I think I got confirmation when I saw the front page of the Observer newspaper last Sunday that I was actually on the Economic League's blacklist and had been on the Economic League's blacklist for at least 25 years. And that really surprised me because I understand the list I was on was the Northwest Regional list. And I've never worked in the Northwest region in my life. So I presume that my name, probably as a supposed subversive 25 years ago, was circulated to all the Economic League regions. Otherwise, I can't understand why I appeared on the Northwest list.
Why do you think your name was on the list?
Well, I must have been probably in my early 20s. I don't think I was a member of a political party at the time. I was certainly a member of the union. And I was a shop steward, and I was a shop steward in the construction industry. And I was employed over a period of years by several national contractors. So I can only presume that by my activities as a shop steward, that I was placed on the list by a national contractor.
Any specific event, anything that you might have done? You've probably racked your brains.
Well, I was a senior steward on what was then the largest construction site in Britain, which was a very large power station. And I think on that contract, I was there for 3.5 years. We had a stoppage of half a day. Other than that, there was no strikes as far as my particular responsibilities were concerned. I think it's fair to say I drove a hard bargain. And I didn't like to see members of our union pushed around by management. And I think the issues that we pursued at that time were mainly about what went into the wage packet and what the guys on the site had to do to achieve that wage packet. Now that's a normal trade union activity as far as I can see. And if that is classed as being subversive, well, God help us if that's what we're coming to.
You're looking at me. First of all, the list that appeared in the Observer was part of an index to our archives of some years ago. It wasn't made entirely plain in that article that this is actually fairly old material, nearly all of which has been junked. The whole of that register is now defunct anyway. And therefore it's very difficult for us now to check back on why any of that material was there. But let me make the main point, which is that although you introduced me as Director General of the League, and undoubtedly we do advise employers on the political backgrounds of all kinds of people, what we principally do is run a major archive of current political material. And we have people of all political persuasions and colours in our archives so that we can use it in the publications that we put out, we can use it in the material that we give to journalists, in material that politicians come and ask us for their research purposes and so on. And the fact that somebody's name appears in the index does not of itself mean that we regard that person as any kind of extremist or dangerous subversive or anything else. In our national archives, we have, for example, the name of every sitting member of Parliament. So there is a card there somewhere for Margaret Hilda Thatcher. That does not mean that we regard her as any kind of extremist. And so far as the trade unions are concerned, we are not an anti-trade union organisation, never have been, but we do certainly advise local employers on industrial relations matters, and therefore obviously we need to know, among other things, the leading officials on all the main trade unions. And we keep that purely for straightforward advice, information, etc.
But I was an insignificant 22-year-old shop steward, and by no stretch of the imagination could I be described as a leading senior trade union official. Now, can you tell me why my name was on that list?
Well,
can you tell me that why I had 3 periods of unemployment? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me why I worked for 25 different employers from the age of 21 to 28? Would the list have something to do with that?
Well, no. I mean, be fair. You invite me here, you sort of spring this on me and say, why was my name on your list 22 years ago? I have only been with the League for 2 years. As I say, that is a defunct list that was scrapped 2 years ago anyway. So, there is no way...
Even I was on the list until 2 years ago.
You were in the index. Why you were on the index? It may well be that you were there because you said something interesting. That
well, I
we
always
were
say
using.
things interesting, but people don't put my name on a card.
Fine. But as I say, we use our archives for our own publications. We write material about current industrial relations topics. We give companies advice on industrial relations matters. We write histories of what is happening on current...
what sort of advice would you give companies about myself
I haven't
as a result of my name being on that list?
I haven't the faintest idea, because I cannot at this distance of time tell you why it was there.
Just to get on to Jim, just moving on from George's particular case,
Yeah.
you began your answer to George by saying, yes, you do provide information on all sorts of individuals, on the one hand, and on the other hand, you have this archive to provide sort of analyses of political events. And you rather slipped over your first point, which is really the point relevant to George's case. I mean, you did admit that you do give information about all sorts of people.
I state it.
You state it.
Let's,
okay. So there is still a register, even if you don't know that George's name is on the modern register. But there is a register, and that's the issue. I mean, whether or not the one published in the Observer is 22 years old isn't the point. The point is that there is a register of names of people who are going to be, their lives are going to be wrecked by employers being told that they're subversive or whatever George's employers were told.
What was wrong with this thing that you junked it in 2 years ago? I mean, you maintain an archive for all these purposes, and suddenly 2 years ago you drop it.
2 years ago, I became Director General of the League, and I was brought in to do 2 or 3 different things. One of them was to be very much more open about what the League is and what it stands for and so on than the League had been in recent years. So, you know, if we're being accused of being an extreme right-wing organisation, which we're not, if they can also say to us, not only are they, you know, this very sinister right-wing outfit, there also is a highly secretive thing, that obviously makes it worse.
So there was something terribly wrong until 2 years ago?
No, there was not something terribly wrong. What I'm saying was I was brought in to do 2 things. One was to be much more open about what the League is, what it stands for and so on, which I'm perfectly happy about, not ashamed of at all, proud about, perfectly happy to state. The other thing was to make the thing more efficient in simple management terms. Now, what we had...
Just a question on openness. I mean,
yes.
Could George go into your office and see whether he's on the register?
George can write to me and I will tell him precisely what is on that register. Now, obviously, as with any other office, and certainly with any newspaper office, we're not going to have everybody swanning in off the streets and poking about in our archives. Because apart from anything else, they can see material about other people that doesn't apply to them. They can also look at the sources of information and so on, which no journalist would give them. And George would not let me come and poke about in his files and find out what, if anything, his union have got on me. So what I'm offering him is a great deal more than he's offering me.
There's a subtle difference, you know. No matter what I've got on you or your organisation in my files, I can't inflict any financial or economic hardship upon you.
Why not?
But I can't. I can't take your right to earn a living away. But mine was taken away from me on 3 occasions in the 60s.
Several unions are at the present time doing their best to take our living away by circulating letters to employers, telling, frankly, a pack of lies about what the League is and what it's about. And so, what you have in your files about the League does matter.
You haven't addressed the central issue. Yeah. Why do you keep names of people like myself on a register, and why did people like myself find it very difficult in the period of stacks of work in the 60s? There was a bounty of construction work to find it very difficult to get employed. I had 3 periods of unemployment. I mean, the pattern just slots in now, and it fits into the operation of the blacklist by the Economic League.
Yeah, but look...